what you also have is several statements by the Chinese officials that they don't have the faith in the dollar and they're looking for an alternative. And they're trying to come up with an alternative. And the only thing that saves us is not another good alternative. And so the best alternative, when there's not another single good alternative, is to get a market basket of everything. So then instead of being at 80% of their basket, we're maybe, 40% of their basket. So we lose a lot of capital. About 3 months ago, they sold $300 billion of Freddie and Fannies. That wasn't a good enough guarantee for them. Freddie, in other words, U.S. government debt. U.S. government guaranteed debt, Fannie and Freddies. They sold $300 billion. The Fed had to step in and buy them because we have a low-interest policy to get out of this housing problem. So China said, we want out, and the buyer of last resort became the Fed, who then ended up having to step forward. So that's the first link of this kind of disintegration I'm talking about, and it was very significant. So ultimately, if these countries start, as Bruce pointed out, they're looking for the alternative, we're going to get a smaller share, and then we're going to have less capital. It means the price of securities will fall, the cost of money will rise, and our recession gets worse and worse. So here's maybe the last note, maybe. So far in this financial crisis, we've been very lucky in the sense that in the crisis, the world has fled to the U.S. Treasury as the flight to quality asset, i.e., the ultimate safe asset. And as they fled to the Treasury as the safe asset, because we've never, unlike virtually every other country of the world, we've always had they virtually all have sovereign defaults except us. So they fled to the Treasury. Treasury prices rose, interest yields became very low. It allowed us to have very cheap money to get out of this recession. The countries from which the capital fled out of now has low prices and high Treasury yields, and they have high interest rates, so they can't get out of the recession. So the day comes, as Bruce points out, they start wanting to go to something else. We will no longer have the luxury of low interest rates here. And to the extent the Fed tries to pour on the printing press to do it, it'll scare everyone off that we're creating inflation.
Make it worse.
It'll make it worse. So I think we're maybe coming to push where push comes to shove, where we might be facing the next reality of a force E coming in to the old system, which is foreign capital could come in, but it could also go out. And when it goes out, all the wonderful stuff of 2003 to 2007 goes away, and you go into reverse. Capital gets very expensive. Companies do have their Chapter 11s and Chapter 7s, and we are just going to be facing very much higher interest rates in the United States. We've had the luxury of having the currency and the government security that the world fled to, but now they're taking second thought about it. And it's the BRIC countries, and that includes China. So China's been making most of the noise, but now it's spreading. Russia certainly has, and even the Saudis are whispering it. So I don't know what's ahead, but it's ominous. Let me put it that way. I don't know how much longer the fiction of the Fed being able to, don't worry, we got the Greenspan put. He will protect, you can buy securities because they won't go down, it'll keep the value from going down. But if they pull out the capital, we won't have the ability to put a bottom under those financial crises. So basically, we've been lucky. As the United States was relative to Britain in the 1930s, China is relative to the United States today. In the 1930s, when we got into the World Depression, UK was the world financial center, and they were over indebted. They were just like us. And the only country in the world that was not over indebted and not over consumed, where the consumer could step up and spend more, and where the currency was not over indebted with foreign debt, was the United States. So the capital gravitated from the UK to the US. The year was 1931. Today, the only other country without excess debt and with a consumer who's only consuming like less than 50% of their income is the Chinese. They could play the same role the United States played in the 1930s, and it's going to happen. And it will happen if they see the advantage of it. And you're absolutely right. What they're doing is day by day, they're experimenting with openness of capital flows and openness of currency. And, China has a great, if Mexico got the guys in Fidelity to invest in Mexico. I would think the Chinese can get some of the guys from Wall Street to start moving to, but they need some kind of guarantees. They need some kind of comfort, and it's going to happen because they're the logical one. Their export success is because they kept the currency cheap, so that they can import a lot of currency and still be competitive. And so they're the ones where it should gravitate. The question is, are they going to decide that as a former communist country that's been nibbling at the edge, are we ready to be center stage? If we have now changed paradigm to where it's no longer, our capital market conditions are no longer set by the Fed, but set by all these independent countries who are exporters, we're no longer in control. And we now have to, meet their competition. And we're no longer going to be in the same driver's seat. And the hopes of staying in the great moderation, I think, have been removed. And I don't know how in the world we're going to stay there. And I just don't know. But we're in a whole new situation going forward. We're not returning to the post-war prosperities that people are pricing in the stock market, as I said earlier.
Well, I, for one, am looking for the last lecture because I'm waiting for you to tell us that.
Well, we can say